Welcome to The Real with Joseph Labman. I am Joseph Labman. Thank you for tuning in this episode of The Real, taking time out of your day to come watch this episode. I really appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe for me. I'd really appreciate that as well. That's the best way you can support this channel and help me grow my content and grow this channel to where I'd like it to be. Everybody hit the like button for me on the way in on this video today. That also helps promote this video more in the algorithms, helps grow this channel more as well. Please share this content. I would really appreciate that. My guests would as well. If you would please share this episode with someone you know that maybe is interested in the topic we're talking about today. Please leave a comment below as well. We'd love to hear your guys' feedback. You can interact with myself and the guest on the panel and the live chat as well. Whatever we're talking about, just leave a comment there in the live chat. Pop in and say hello. We'll put it on the screen for you. And yeah, without further ado, let's get to the show. Welcome back to The Real with Joseph Labman. I am Joseph Labman. Hope you guys having a great Monday, post Super Bowl Sunday. Hope you guys having a great day after we watched that game last night. I don't know what you want to make of that. Welcome in here. Let's get a like rally on the way in here. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. Welcome into The Real. Shout out to my guy Paramjant. He said, "What's up? What up? I'm at work." Going to tune in. It's dead at work. Appreciate you, Paramjant. Always good to see you, brother. Appreciate you for tuning in at work. And I guess I'm live at the right time for you because it's dead at work. So why not sit back and relax here as we get ready to talk about the Browns and why Todd Monken maybe could be the next Mike Vrabel. I'm going to get to that here in a second. But yeah, we watched the Super Bowl last night as the Seattle Seahawks absolutely just, in my opinion, just controlled the game. Wasn't a whole lot of offense for 3 quarters, especially in the first half. It's just field goals for Seattle. But I thought Seattle, though, their defense, both defenses were pretty good. But I thought Seattle's defense really just, on both sides, really Seattle's defense, but the line of scrimmage play for Seattle just really controlled New England up front. And ultimately, I think that's what really won the game, which has really every Super Bowl I've watched since I've been alive. It always comes down to the line of scrimmage play and the more aggressive team and just being able to execute. And I think that's what they were able to do. And so shout out to Seattle Seahawks and the 12s out there. And so kid from Aurora High School, literally 10 minutes from my city, Solon is wild. Yeah, AJ Barner. Yeah, I think that's him from Aurora. Yeah, shout out to him. They had him and Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant, a Glenville kid, actually played with, if you remember who I had on my show, Paramjant, I don't know if you were watching, one of my best friends in life, Deshaun Martin, came on the show back in football season. We interviewed Patrick Kinzel from Hoban, and he played with Kobe Bryant at Cincinnati. So it was Kobe Bryant and then AJ Barner. So that was pretty cool. Then obviously you had Vrabes on the other side, the Walsh product. So crazy, a lot of North, and then Josh McDaniels from Barberton with the McKinleys. So I mean, you had a lot of Northeast Ohio people out on that field last night, which was pretty cool. But yeah, shout out to the Seahawks. I mean, they controlled the game. I thought just dominated New England for most of the game. New England, I thought would be able to make adjustments to the defense. Eventually, they would get something going, but when they finally got something going, it was too late. And then when they had a shot to kind of make it a game, Drake May pushed the ball down the field into triple coverage, and he threw a pick. So not a great game for Drake May. Yeah, I see a lot of pressure on him. The offensive line's a very young line, so I think that was a learning experience for all of them. But was not the cleanest game they needed. But yeah, but shout out to the 12-man. It's still shout out to the New England Patriots. I mean, here, I'm going to get to it now. It's pretty impressive still, be a 4-win team and go all the way to the Super Bowl in 1 year. That's very, very, obviously if we were able to win it last night, it would have been considered, some people's eyes, maybe the greatest coaching season ever. But I think it still goes down as one of the best coaching seasons ever. I think that's what it's going to come down to. Or not, well, no, it's going to come down to. I'm thinking ahead. I'm sorry, looking at a note at the same time. No, but I think that's what it's going to go down as, is what I meant to say. It's still one of the best coaching seasons ever. And so, I shout out to Mike Vrabel, New England Patriots. I'm sure, they'll still be around for a long time with Drake May. He's got to get better in some areas, but, they still have a great team. And so, and also I was reading some comments too. Paramjant said, I think Todd is going to cook. I love the staff he is bringing in here. He even said you need an elite staff to be a great football team. Yeah, and that's something I've preached on this show for a long time, how important an elite staff is. I mean, I'm going to get to that a little bit more today. It goes with my what I'm going to discuss today is, you saw that with Kevin Stefanski. Once he fired Alex Van Pelt, Stump Mitchell, a friend of the show, shout out to Stump, and then basically let Bill Callahan just walk out of the door, didn't even get a draft pick for him, nothing. You saw what the offense became. It went down to the toilet. It became the worst offense in the league with a span of 2 years because the staff was not that good. I mean, even they never replaced Bill Callahan. You look at that first year after he left in 24. I mean, we hired a guy to come in to be an offensive line coach, and by the end of the year, Mike Vrabel, defensive guy, is coaching offensive lineman. That's how unstable it was. And so, what makes a great head coach is the staff he surrounds himself with. And I think that's one of the reasons why the Browns like Todd Monken, for many reasons, was because he's a guy who has a lot of connections compared to all the candidates they had. He has deep connections. He's able to pull guys in here. In case Jim Schwartz left, which so we saw that news over the weekend. I wasn't surprised by that. I told you guys he's probably out of here. You could see the temperature in the room with the day Monken was hired. You could tell he was probably not coming back. I didn't think that had a shot at happening, but they tried. But not surprised he left. So he's going to take a year off. It sounds like maybe he'll be a defensive consultant somewhere, but he's going to take a year off and kind of regroup. So, but shout out to Jim Schwartz. Pretty sure all he did for the organization. He's a hell of a coach, and probably the best coach in terms of like position coach. I'll say position coach, and probably in terms of unit coach, defensive coordinator, or offensive coordinator, head coach. He's probably the best I've seen as a Browns coach in my lifetime that I could think of. I mean, Kyle Shanahan was technically here, but he didn't really do a whole lot when he was here because he wasn't really allowed. Then he, wrote a presentation why he wanted to leave. But, but I think Jim Schwartz probably is the best Browns coach in my lifetime I could think of. I was born in 99. I'd say him or Bill Callahan, guys like that. And there's some probably really good position coaches we've had throughout the years, a ton of them. Stump, one of them. George Warhop was here before, but in terms of the coordinator and stuff, he's probably the most successful I've seen in terms of just coming in to be able to take that defense like year one to an elite defense like that. That was pretty impressive. But shout out to Jim Schwartz. But now the Browns have a void they got to fill up. But I think Todd Monken's the guy that can not only hire a new defensive coordinator or keep that defense rolling, but I also think he could be possibly the next Mike Vrabel. He has a great opportunity to do so. I'm going to explain that now. Shout out to UHJ5FQ. Hell yes, he can. Go Browns. That's right. Go Browns. Appreciate you for tuning in, my friend. And so I believe you can too. And I thought of this today. I was going to come up here today, do a show, because obviously we didn't do Sunday night because of the game and all that. So I wanted to come up here tonight or this afternoon and, share something on my mind about the Browns. And I was thinking, how do I want to describe this, right? I want to dive more into Todd Monken and right what he could be for the Browns. And I heard this today from Scott Petrak on the morning radio show, Baskin and Phelps. Shout out to them, courtesy of 92.3 The Fan. And they start off the interview with Scott Petrak talking about the game last night about defense, right? Team construction in terms of quarterback, and how important that is. You see teams with elite defense, you just got to have a good quarterback, and you can compete for a championship like Seattle did, right? And so here's what they said at the beginning of this interview here.
It's not a big deal. Already way ahead of the game. Before we get to the Browns, Super Bowl yesterday, defense dominating. Actually for both teams. What'd you think? And does it bode well for the Browns? Does it mean nothing for the Browns?
No, I think it can mean something for the Browns. I mean, I was trying to make those parallels and those connections. And to me, it's if you have an elite defense, and Seattle does, and I think the Browns, if it doesn't, is pretty close to being elite. You can win a bunch of games if you figure out quarterback. So, Sam Darnold was not a member of the Seahawks a year ago at this time. And, they had won 10 games the year before, so it's not like they were where the Browns are, but they needed to find their quarterback, and they found him in Sam Darnold. And I think there's a message there that you can find quarterbacks, right? And it's kind of conflicting because we all know it's easiest to find that quarterback in the top 5. And Darnold was the top 5 pick, but the Seahawks didn't draft him in the top 5, right? They just went out and got him when another team let him go. So, we hear all this talk about, you can find a quarterback the next year. You can find a quarterback. It's not easy, but I think they're out there to find. And if you find the right one and pair him with an elite defense, you got a chance to go to the playoffs and do some good things.
And so, again, that was courtesy of 92.3 The Fan. And so, he made some great points there in terms of team construction, right? If you see this model, you have an elite defense, right, like Seattle does, and how the Browns are borderline elite. Some people would say elite. They're pretty good, pretty damn good. And right, they have the best player in all of football, in my opinion. Myles Garrett, definitely the best defensive player in football. Carson Schweissinger, Denzel Ward, you name it. Like they got dogs over there. They got a great D line. They can control the line of scrimmage. The Browns are pretty damn good defense. Some would say elite. And then he said you pair that with a good quarterback like a Sam Darnold. If you find the quarterback to pair with an elite defense, you can win a lot of games. But you can also compete for a championship, right? And he said it's not apples to apples because obviously Seattle was a 10-win team the year before. But in terms of roster construction, if you could find that quarterback, right, you could become something with that kind of defense. But I think for the Browns, where they have to start is look at the team on the other sideline last night. How do you find a quarterback? And not only how do you find one, how do you develop one? How do you have a system and a culture in place to have structure around one, right? Which Seattle had. Seattle was already a 10-win team before Sam Darnold got there. But how can you – I look at the Browns. They're 3-4-win team the last 2 years, right? How do you have that culture? How do you take that leap to be a 3-1 team to become a winning team again and to have that be able to bring in a quarterback or even a quarterback on roster and develop them and put a structure around them to get the most out of them? Because I think ultimately that's where it starts. Seattle, New England, they have culture. They have development, right? They have all those things, the ingredients you need to put a foundation around and a structure around a quarterback and a whole team for them to get the most out of them, be a consistent winner year in and year out. But I think the Browns don't need to start on the other sideline, the New England sideline first. And I think if you look over to Mike Vrabel, right, and what Mike Vrabel was able to do in 1 year, took a 4-win New England team with, honestly, if you look at their offensive personnel, to me still isn't like great. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Rashad or Ramondre Stevenson, very good running back. Travion Henderson, I think, is going to be a great back in the league if he could stay healthy. They don't use him a whole lot, maybe because of his size, but their system. But I think Travion, I think, is going to be a really good player in this league. They could just stay healthy like any player, right? Stephon Diggs, still a good receiver, but a little over, not what he used to be, and there's a lot more there now with him, and so. Demario Douglas, Mac Hollins, these are okay guys. I'd say C-level, B-level guys. Not hating on it, but they're just, they're not. They don't have any, like, you look at their offensive personnel, you're like, yeah, they don't have anybody that's like elite, right? Somebody that's like great, like a home run hitter. All right, they don't have that. They have a great defense, right? They have a good offensive line that's young, but they're a good offensive line, but they're young. Last night they showed that inexperience. Will Campbell, I think he's going to be a really good – I still think he'll be a good player in this league, but he looked very inexperienced last night. He got the left guard, same thing. That dude from Notre Dame for Seattle, he was a rookie. He went in there and Riley Mills, he went out there and did damage last night, that 3-tech. I mean, really changed the game in some ways. Their interior was really getting a lot of pressure, making Drake May have to flush out of the pocket or step up and force the ball down the field. You look at their offense in New England, it wasn't a great offense, honestly. And they didn't really have a great postseason offensively. They really got by a lot of games. You can make the argument that, Bo Nix doesn't break his foot. That might have been Denver out there last night. But that doesn't take away from what they did. They still went out this year, dominated in the regular season, won the division. But why was that? Because Mike Vrabel went in there from day one and set a standard of culture. How did he take a 4-win team with – didn't really, I don't think really improved dramatically from an offensive skill standpoint. Like in terms of, I mean, they added Travion Henderson, but they don't really utilize him like that. They don't the same kind of receiving core really. They added Stephon Diggs, but he's not the same Stephon Diggs. I mean, yeah, they added some pieces, but it's not like a glare. Like this is a tremendous offense. They just added different coaching and a new head coach, different coordinator. And got the right pieces that fit what they needed, and they were rolling, right? And Drake May obviously elevated because of that. So you see, when you get the right structure and program in place, the quarterback elevates, and you start to build out the other pieces in your roster. You make the right coordinating hires, right? So you have to get the right head coach. And why I think the Browns should start to, don't look to Seattle first in terms of just go find Sam Darnold and have your elite defense. Well, you're going to do that. You got to have the right culture in place as well. And so I would look back to to the other sideline, like first, how can we become New England first? Right? If I'm Todd Monken, I look to Mike Vrabel and say, and I see the parallels. Can Todd Monken be the next Mike Vrabel? Can he? Is there similarities there? Can he come into the Cleveland Browns in year one? And I'm not saying take him all the way to Super Bowl, win the division, and all that stuff. But I'm saying, can he just at least come in and instill a culture and a foundation they have not had, where they can become a consistent winner and they can find a Sam Darnold type player, or at their next a quarterback rather, they can turn into a Sam Darnold or even better, right? Can they find that? Can they find that development? Can they find that stability? And so here's Mike Vrabel, though, his first team meeting, right? Here's the tone he set from day one. And you guys have probably seen us talk about phones and all that. Now, I'll play the phone part first, just for I know a lot of people like listen to this. Here's Mike Vrabel, his first team meeting last year in the spring of the Patriots.
That I have, okay, that I would ask us to try to abide by. One is to respect the team, okay? Respect the football team and the people that are here, okay? The second one is, okay, I'd like you to have, when we're in a meeting, okay, I know what the style may be. Just pull your hood down in a meeting. That's all I ask, okay? I just ask that when we're in a meeting, okay, that we just pull our hoods down and we go from there. Be on time, okay? We just talked about time. Be on time. And if I can't be on time, Christian, what's the easiest thing to do? You would just call, right? That's called communicate, okay? All you got to do is say, hey, something came up, okay? I'm going to be a little bit late. Now, after about 4 or 5 times, that starts wearing off, okay? This is just a once in a while. All it is a respect thing, okay? And the cell phones, okay? We all got cell phones, okay? Most of you have more than one, as a matter of fact. Just leave the cell phone in your bag, but just put the phone away. Okay, and if it rings, don't start coughing. Like, I've been in this league for 25 years. We all know when a cell phone goes off. We don't need to start coughing and doing that shit. We'll just turn it on and put it on silent, and we'll move on. Leave it in your bag. The cell phone's in the weight room. Okay, leave it on the counter or leave it in your locker. Okay, you don't need to do a set and then check your cell phone. Do a set and check your cell phone. Just leave the cell phones out of the locker room. Okay, and what my goal was.
And so, right off the rip, he came in and just set the rules right off the bat. We're not getting on no cell phones, right? We're not getting on the cell phone. We're not, you don't need to sit there, do your weights when you're doing between your sets, looking at your phone, texting. That's a waste of time. That's not really a real workout. Workout should have pace and intensity to it. I remember I learned that in high school. Dan Laroff, shout out to Coach Laroff, just got the Stowe job when he came in the day one at CBCA. He taught us how to work out instantly, and there wasn't any wasted time. Like, there wasn't no sitting around on the phone talking, how's everybody doing? No, it was from boom. It was everything was, every workout was from this, this station to this station to this station to this station. And you got a real workout, but that's how it goes in a game. Like, you stop at a game here and there, but it's tempo. You have to keep going. Like, it's getting your body and your mind prepared for that battle, right? For that, to be able to keep going. And I still work out. I try to work out as close as I can to that now. In terms of when I work out, I don't like just sitting around. When I'm biking on my phone on the, I'll look down, or when I'm biking at the gym, I'll look down at my phone periodically to change the song or something, or check a message. But because I'm sitting there, but when I'm working out and doing all the other stuff, moving around, I got to be going. Like, I don't like to just sit and I just feel like I'm not getting the right workout in. You got to sweat a little bit, but that's a whole nother thing. But anyways, he came in from day one and set the tone, right? And he said, no cell phones. If communication, you're gonna be a little late, communicate that, right? It's a culture of accountability is what he's getting at. And he also goes on here to talk about goals and how he took the job, right? And I love this here from Mike Vrabel. This is him last year about why he explains to them what's their goals, right? Going on the culture of accountability, holding themselves accountable. Here's what Coach Vrabel said last year. Again, this is the team meeting for the season. Continuing here.
That I told everybody in the building, and I told Mr. Kraft, I told the coaches, it was to build a program that you guys and the coaches and the staff wanted to be a part of, that they wanted to protect. When you care about something, do you protect it? Yep. And that you were proud of it. That I'm proud to be a New England Patriot. I'm proud of the way that we do things. I'm proud of the way we prepare. I'm proud of the way we practice. Okay. And I'm proud of my teammates for the effort in which they play. So that was my goal, okay, to get started. And then you're going to eventually believe in that and then start to trust it.
So he goes on to talk about the goals he has. When he came to New England, he told Mr. Kraft, told everybody in the building, this is what we're going to be doing. We're going to aim for the highest, right? We're going to win in division. We're going to aim to compete for championships, but we're going to have a standard within the building every single day that we're going to abide by, live up to, right? And it's a standard you have to, when you walk in that building every day as a New England Patriot, that's what you're walking into. Abide by those rules and that standard, and that intensity in the weight room, right? I'm sure in practice, in the film sessions, you should be sitting there taking notes. Like it all goes together. The nutrition, everything goes together. And so I hear this though, and I made me think of some of what Todd Monken's emphasized recently. And I think I really liked what I heard from Coach Monken, and when he did his whole media tour last week, obviously, the day he got introduced last Tuesday when he spoke to the media in the press conference and everything. And it made me start to think, I've heard Coach Monken say this too. And here's some clips here. So here's some parallels between Coach Monken and Vrabel there, right? About goals, culture of accountability. And so here's the first one here from Coach Monken. Talking about accountability. And I believe it's right here. Give me 1 second. I have it queued up here. So here's Coach Monken going on about accountability and the culture, kind of similar to what Vrabel was just talking about there with his team.
Jimmy Watkins, Cleveland.com. Todd, you're known as a straight shooter. That's what they say about you. How do you set that culture of accountability in a way that doesn't turn players off, so to speak?
Great question. Like I said before, I think you have to hold the players accountable for what they say their dreams and aspirations are. And you have to find out what really do you want individually with your career, and then what do you want collectively as a team. And all you're doing is holding them to what their goals and aspirations are, like people did for me. I am who I am because my parents did that for me. They didn't do that to me. They did that for me. And that's the way I go about it, is I think everybody likes honesty till they don't like what's said to them honestly. And I'm the same way. I'm no different. I like being stroked in a good way. I'm no different. I don't like the other side of it, but that's how I've gotten a lot better. And the people that love you the most, they're going to be honest with you. But all it is finding out what are your dreams and aspirations, and then let's fight like hell to achieve them.
And so I hear a lot of parallels there with Vrabel in the clip I showed you from the jump with Vrabel, or what we just heard him say. And so, but he mentions there, right? I'm going to hold them accountable to their dreams and aspirations. And it's my job to instill that every single day, right? And he really correlated a lot of what Vrabel said, talked about communication there. They asked me, you're a straight shooter. He's known to be a very point-blank guy. We saw Mike Vrabel address his team off the rip. It was pretty point blank. He wasn't messing around. Like, he didn't mince any words. He was very honest, and this is what I want, and this, you either abide by it or just get the hell out of here now, right? We'll trade you or whatever. And that's how it's got to be. And that's how a lot of players want it to be. Players don't want you ever hear this player, you hear players coach and all this. I don't think people really realize what players coach should mean, what it actually looks like. A players coach doesn't mean guys could just get there late and, they can lollygag and get on their phones. And you remember we've seen that in the past with these young hot boy coordinators that got hired in the past. In the NFL, they had phone time during their days at the facility, time for your cell phone. All this shit. That's not going on with Todd Monken. It's not going on with Mike Vrabel. It's not going on with the most successful coaches in the NFL, because you're there to work. You're paid to do a job. You show up and do the job. Doesn't mean they treat you like a tyrant, but it's just like, it's a respect. It's a respect thing, not only respect for your coach, for your teammates, but for yourself and for the organization, for that logo. It's a respect thing. It really means something to you to be a Cleveland Brown. It really means something to you to be a New England Patriot. And that's how it has to be. And so that's what he's really emphasizing there. It really means something for us to be here each and every day and being accountable. But also, one thing Mike Vrabel said to his team too that I thought was great was, we have goals for us. you're going to abide by those goals. And eventually you're going to buy into it, or you're just going to be phased out. And basically what he's saying is, what he was telling his team was, we're not accepting losing anymore, right? We have new goals and standards here. I don't know whatever's been going on before I got here. That's over with. That's over. It's like I hear people all the time saying, well, the Browns are the Browns, right? And yeah, I get it. they've been terrible since they came back in '99. But to say Todd Monken doesn't have a shot because the Browns are just the Browns, well, I think with Paulie Podesta gone now, and according to him and Andrew Berry, they're pretty aligned. And you listen to Todd Monken, how he talks and everything. I think he's got a shot to create his own, to create the culture in the program in his own way, but also what we've needed for a long and forever finally can happen here, right? So I don't think we should be walking around talking about, well, they're going to fail because that's just what they do. Well, no, that's not the same. It ain't the same mantra anymore. It ain't the same people in charge in terms of Podesta and all that, right? We have a new sheriff in town. We got an alpha in town now, Todd Monken, that's going to come in here and instill a culture. But the players have to believe it. We could say that as fans, or I could say that to you. And I said that on Stump's show. I went on the show a couple weeks ago. I said he needs to come in there from day one and they tell them that we're not accepting that lose anymore. Stop acting like it. It's like what Kirk Cincinnati did when he went to Indiana, right? He walked in the building and told everybody in the whole fan base, the players there, in the middle of the basketball rate, it says Ohio State sucks, Penn State sucks, Michigan sucks, everybody sucks. We're the best. We're going to win. Stop acting like losers. Stop accepting losing. Whatever's been going on in this program the X amount of years since I haven't been here, forget the hell with all that. We're not talking like that. We're not acting like it anymore. Start talking like winners, right? And that's how it starts. That's where it starts. And that's what I think Vrabel did from day one, clearly. And when I hear Coach say that there, kind of what he's going on. But he also went on more in this, kind of emphasizing that more later on in the press conference. And right here, I have it queued up. Let me get the timestamp here for you, right? Well, here's Coach Monken again going on about that. His quote here was basically going on about losing, but it's not in his vocabulary, is what he says here. Let's take a listen to what he means by that.
Well, it's interesting that you asked that, because in the interview, there was a question that came up about strength as a head coach. And the other was where your gaps as a coach, where you need help, where you can use people to fill in those gaps. And the other was, how would you envision yourself being unsuccessful? That's not even in my vocabulary. It just isn't. Scott?
And so they asked him, how would you feel if you were unsuccessful? He said, that's not in my vocabulary. We're not even talking about losing. We're not thinking about losing. We're not acting like losers. We are not the same Cleveland Browns we were prior to when I got here. That ship sailed. It's over with. There's a new sheriff in town. We're doing it differently now. Sounds like Mike Vrabel, right? And when Mike Vrabel, going back to his interview, or not his interview, his meeting, with his team, here was the next part he said after the last time we've watched. Remember, he just got done talking about how goals for the team and everything. Here's what Vrabel continued on saying.
You're going to eventually believe in that and then start to trust it. The goals for our program, the overriding goals for that program that we're going to build is going to be, one, to win the division. Okay, when was the last time the New England Patriots won the division? Does anybody know? 2019, right? And we have one player, Joe Cardona, that's one person. So we're building our own identity. We're building our own team. We're building our own program. There's going to be things within that are different. There's going to be things within that are the same. Okay, and it's all going to be based on how do we make you guys, okay, as good as you possibly can be as an individual, as a player, and then as a teammate. That's going to be our whole goal. And you have to start understanding that of why we're doing what we're doing. The training staff, the equipment staff.
Right. So you hear Vrabel there. Understand the why and what we're doing. Right. And that's what Todd Monken was kind of basically saying when he answered that question there. The last two I showed for Monken in that press conference was, this is the why and what we're doing. Why am I holding the players accountable? I'm holding you accountable because this is what we have. This is our culture. This is the standard we set as a team. This is what we're going to abide by every day. And I'm going to instill it. Or I'm going to instill it every day. Right. Same thing Mike Vrabel said there to his team. first from day one. But I like what he said there, though, is we have goals of winning, right? I don't know what's been going on before I got here, but some stuff will keep, but a lot of it's going to change. It's my program now. Like it's a different. We got to get back to the standard of what the New England Patriots should be. We're going to focus on winning the division title. How do you get? What's the easiest way to get in the playoffs? Win your division, dominate your division. Right? The division should mean something. The Browns have not won a division since 1989. It's been a long time, right? And they had one guy in that room, one guy in that New England team was there. 2019 was the last time they won a division before this year. They had one player left on the roster since then. So out of the other 52 guys, which basically nobody on that team besides one guy had never won a division. How many guys in the Browns have won a division? None in Cleveland. None in Cleveland because it hadn't happened in Cleveland since 1989. So kind of from the same thing. But it shows you why the culture, the standard from day one, right? We know we need a quarterback. We know we have an elite defense. We can fill out all the roster and all that. If we have X, Y, and Z, we can find that. But before you go and find the quarterback, before you go and, worry about focusing on your roster, before the draft even, starting now, you have to instill a culture of accountability, goals, mindset, attitude, right? The right verbiage, what you're thinking about every day, the intensity and the what's going on in the building every day, or the standard rather, right? All that stuff matters. What you do now affects what you do in November and December of next year in the season. It just does. I'm around high school program right now. I got on my chest. I tell these guys all the time now. They're going through the weight session. I was in the weight room a couple weeks ago before a workout, talking to a couple of the seniors, great guys. Shout out to them and Deb and Isaiah. And telling them, I told them the exact same thing we were sitting there talking about because they love they have a new program now this year. Have kind of changed the weight program a little bit for the better, and they've improved it. And it's kind of similar to this type of stuff. And the guys love it, but they understand that. And we sat and talked about this for a while. We were sitting there for a while talking about this kind of stuff and just how what you do now affects what you do in November, right? Championships are won in January and February and March in the winter. That's when those championships are won. And so, just tell you off the bat, that's when they're won. And so, I hear that from Coach Vrabel there. We heard what Coach Monken said, though. But going off what he said there about goals for the program, well, going off of winning, Coach Monken recently in an interview with WKYC the day last week when he got introduced, kind of said the same thing. Here's Coach Monken.
Press conference, but you look at the two teams playing in the Super Bowl. There's balance, right? You think about defense, running the ball, stopping the run. What's your vision of this? Obviously, the quarterback's important, but how much is it about being a balanced team?
Well, I think, first of all, you can talk about offense and defense. You have to be equally strong if you're going to compete for a championship. You can't put all your resources into offense. You can't put all your resources into defense. You need both. And that, if you talk about balance in terms of roster construction and your ability to win games a lot of different ways, and then balance offensively is really not run and pass. It's a part of it, but it's touches. It's them having to defend the whole field and all of your skill players that are on the field.
And so that's Coach Monken kind of going off what we heard earlier from Scott Petrak talking about, right? We could talk about personnel. We could talk about the type of offenses we want and balance and keep, you're right, and I like everything he said there. But what I'm really getting at here, though, and I actually, my apologies, I actually was on the wrong timestamp there by accident, but I have it right now. Here's what I really wanted to emphasize with Coach, what he meant here.
I want to go to Cleveland.
This question here, let's take a listen to this.
I want to try and get this thing right.
Well, it starts with ownership. I mean, Dee and Jimmy are committed to bringing a consistent winner to these fans and to the Northeast region. And they invest heavily in that, whether it's staffing, whether it's players, whether it's future projects. And I've been through this before at Southern Miss. I've been through this in terms of, I wouldn't say putting a program back on the map, that's unfair, but I would just say of building it into a consistent winner. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to do everything in your power you can to put yourself in a position wherever you can compete for championships.
And so you hear what he said there. A lot. Number one, he talked about ownership, just like how Mike Vrabel talked about Mr. Kraft and what he promised Mr. Kraft, right? That what the standard's going to be. And Todd Monken says, right there, the Haslam ownership group, they are committed to winning, right? They want to win. They're committed to winning. And so then he goes on to talk about how can we develop a consistent winner, right? He talks about championships, right? But how can we develop not just a winner, a consistent winner? And a lot of what I heard there sounds very similar to what Mike Vrabel was saying to his team, right? Some correlation there about culture, accountability, mindset, right? The standard, right? What is the standard, right? How can we be not just a winner, a consistent winner? How do we come in each day and have that same intensity every day? What we do now affects us later down the road. And so I see a lot of parallels here between Coach Monken and Mike Vrabel. And I just think what I've heard from Coach Monken since he's been here publicly, and I'm sure what he's told guys behind the scenes with the team, I think this guy has a shot to, not saying to have the same success from a win-loss standpoint next year as Mike Vrabel, but can he have the same impact as a head coach? Can he come in here and instill a culture and a foundation of winning? And really, that's what we need the most. We want to win more games, Glenn. It's all about winning, which coach said many times last week. But in order to get that, you have to have the secret ingredients first. You have to have that foundation. You have to have that culture, right? And that's what I've heard from him. And that's what I heard from Mike Vrabel when he went to New England last year. And you saw the result in 1 year. Not saying the Browns are going to do that, but I think in order to find obviously New England has Drake May, but in order for the Browns to find a Drake May or even a Sam Darnold for that matter, you have to have the right culture and stability and foundation and development. If Mike Vrabel not went to New England this last year and they brought in, let's say they brought in a coach who wasn't as good as Mike Vrabel, maybe a coach who was hired another team this past coaching cycle who just got fired, let's say, one of those guys from that same cycle, Vrabel got hired. Let's say they would have hired somebody else that wasn't Mike Vrabel, who didn't have that type of mantra, that attitude, and the mindset and the goals, right? Drake May would still just probably be no different than his rookie year right now as a quarterback. He'd be a little different. And I know he didn't have a great game last night, but, I think if Drake May was put in a different situation, had Drake May been put on the Browns last year, or if you put Drake May in a lot of different situations last year, like Atlanta or Vegas or places, or even Arizona or places like that, he's not the same. He wouldn't have taken that leap that he took from year 1 to year 2, which wouldn't have happened because the culture of where he was mattered, right? The coaching mattered. The staff they had on that supports the staff mattered. Right? The standard each and every day, the accountability amongst the players and the coaches mattered. And it all led up to where they were able to make it to last night. And guess what? He didn't play a good game last night. No doubt about it. Neither did the offensive line. But that culture they have, those guys are going to use that. And they're in the right situation to be able to bounce back and come back better next time and be on the other side of that game and be Super Bowl champions. They can do it because of the culture and accountability and the structure and development they have. That's just what it does. That's to become a consistent winner. Who are a lot of people going to pick to win a division next year? A lot of people are probably going to pick the AFC East winner to be New England just because of what they are from a culture standpoint. Parent John, good to see you again. He said, yes, right culture is key to turning a dump around. Yeah, no doubt about it. The foundation wasn't right in the first place. Tear it all down and build up from the ground up. Exactly right. And I think that's what Coach Monken is going to be trying to do here. He's going to try to tear it down and build up from the ground up, just like Mike Vrabel did. He's right about the phones. Yeah, yeah, that's got to drive a coach crazy. You see guys on the phone. You're there to work, not be on your phone. But moving on now, though, to more of Coach Monken and kind of building off more of this, right? You heard what Mike Vrabel said there about how, it's got to mean something to you to be a New England Patriot because it meant something to him, right? He played for them. He loves Mr. Kraft, right? It means something to be a New England Patriot. You heard what Coach Monken said here in these last few clips I played from him, kind of a similar sentiment, how you got to be proud of being a Cleveland Brown. This is our culture and the standard we set. We want to be a consistent winner, right? This is what we want to lay the foundation for. D and Jimmy Haslam, yes, they haven't been able to get it together in terms of winning yet, but have they been have they shown the commitment to winning? Yes, that you cannot take away from them. The kind of money they've went out and spent on players, not just Deshaun Watson, but just other, and just how aggressive they've been at times. They are trying to win. That's no doubt about that. I think, have swung in the wrong directions at times and missed badly, but a lot of times. But I think they have somebody in there from a head coach standpoint, which, in my opinion, is where it starts for the entire building. Not forget the front office, forget all. It starts with your head coach. He's the leader of the franchise. Just like Andrew Berry said when they were looking to hire a coach, they said we're looking for the leader of the franchise. Well, they found one, and that's why they emphasized that last week. When Andrew Berry gave his opening statement was that Todd was head and shoulders the guy for them mainly because of his leadership and his acumen. And you hear it from him since he's been speaking. When he spoke in the press conference, the interviews, it just glares off the screen. Which is why I said last week I gave the hire an A. I thought it was great. I thought his debut last week was awesome, but going back to my main point today about how it parallels, how can he be the next Mike Vrabel? We've heard some so far, but it's going back to Vrabel. It means something to him to be not only a head coach, but to wear that New England Patriots logo on his chest every day, right? And I think with Todd Monken, I think he could set that same standard too. And Coach Monken last week did an exclusive interview with Nathan Segura, which I thought was a great interview. But Coach Monken talks about the story of how he got the job. And I thought this was really cool. I don't know if you haven't seen this yet, but listen and watch when he explains when he got the job and when he was told he got the job. Just the emotion, not only because he was waited so long to be a head coach, but this really means something to him. You heard him get emotional in the press conference, right? You hear him get emotional in this interview here. Like this really means something to him to not only be a head coach, but to be with the Cleveland Browns, this opportunity. He believes and he could build something here. Like you heard in that last clip there, the guy asked him, why did you choose the Browns? He believes in the ownership and they're committed to winning. He believes he's the guy that's going to deliver that right structure and direction like Vrabel did, right? And so here's Coach Monken here. Again, just it really means something to have this job.
Because they could have just called and said, I didn't get it. That's pretty simple. I had to ask him, can I come on with a sweatshirt for God's sakes? Do I have to get dressed up again? All these interviews, the positive is I've updated my wardrobe.
That's good.
Having to buy suits and shirts. And the negative is that, I don't know when I'll wear them again. But the point is that, so I said, can I wear the sweatshirt? Okay. So as soon as I got on there, Jimmy asked if the sweatshirt had a Cleveland Browns logo on it. I said, no, but I'll draw one in crayon. I'll get on here as a 5-year-old and draw like a logo if that's what it takes. And they said, how I feel about being the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. And you can't even imagine. You just can't.
I know it means a lot to you. And as you said, this is kind of what you've worked for. So I feel your emotion. I feel your passion. And I know our fans will as well. But I think that's something that is.
It's a shout out to them. Shout out to Nathan Segura. It was a great interview. I got more clips from that here in a second. But you hear the passion there, like Nathan was saying, but also just it means something to him to be the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. Like he didn't just take the job because it's a gig. Like he's had other job opportunities in the past that he turned down and didn't pursue as aggressively. He wanted this one. He believes in what he's able to do here, and I think you could see it, you can hear it in what he's saying, but also he has he has the know-how, right? This is somebody who was under Kirby Smart and John Harbaugh, 2 winners. He won 2 national championships at Georgia. He's been around winning. He's been around successful programs, just like Mike Vrabel had as a player, and he was already a successful coach before in Tennessee. But they know what that looks like, all right? But they also had the personality and their personality and what it means to them. It reflects into the team and it shows. Like you watch Patriots, all those guys, it meant something for them to be out there and wear that logo every week, right? I think with this type of coach and Todd Monken, I think he can instill that in the Browns because I didn't see that a whole lot. I think guys in Cleveland for the last X amount of years, they play for the fans. They love the logo in the city, but it was more for playing for each other because I think a lot of guys felt like, man, we're in a pretty shitty situation. And all we got is each other playing for our, we're in the midst of all this dysfunction constantly, right? And you didn't really, I think players in the past probably didn't feel that same intensity and respect from the top that they should have felt. And so, and I think that kind of reflected on the field a lot of times. That all that stuff matters, going back to what I said earlier. And so, again, I think hearing him say that there, just what it means to him, I think is awesome. And then he also goes on going back to the standard again in that interview. He goes back to the standard again, and how he says his words here, where I put crappy football team. He used another word than crap. And so here's what Coach Monken said here, going back to the standard, and how much he hates not only losing, but seeing crappy football under his name. And I love this intensity, the setting the standard again. Here's Coach Monken.
Or it's a loss, and there's nothing like that feeling, as you talked about, that euphoria of that win.
100%. And, we talk about all the time is everything we're going to try to do is to eliminate football. And what I mean by that is, as much as I love winning and as much as I hate losing, I despise football and what it looks like when my name's on it.
Yep.
And so those are the things that I've been about throughout my career, has been, okay, how do we eliminate football? Okay. And that starts with understanding that we're human and we're going to make mistakes. And then we own it and we fight like hell to fix it. And we keep the excuse making at a minimum. And we have the maximum amount of owning it and fixing it. And that's how you're successful in life. I don't care, football or relationships, human nature, self-preservation. When things go a certain way, it's natural to complain, to make excuses. I get it. All right, take about 5 minutes and then pull your big boy pants up and let's own it and fix it. And that's the starting point of having a successful relationship, a successful business, and having a successful football team.
One of the things that you
I don't know about you, but it sounds reminds me a lot of this we heard earlier from Coach Vrabel. Let's go back to Vrabel's now. Or go back to Coach Vrabel's now. Here's what he had to say. Remember this?
Mr. Kraft, I told the coaches it was to build a program that you guys and the coaches and the staff wanted to be a part of, that they wanted to protect. When you care about something, do you protect it? Yep. And that you were proud of it. That I'm proud to be a New England Patriot. I'm proud of the way that we do things. I'm proud of the way we prepare. I'm proud of the way we practice. Okay. And I'm proud of my teammates for the effort in which they play. So that was my goal, okay, to get started. And then you're going to eventually believe in that and then start to trust it. The goals for our program, the overriding goals for that program that we're going to build is going to be, one, to win the division. Okay, when was the last time the New England Patriots won the division? Does anybody know? 2019, right? And we have one player, Joe Cardona, that's one person. So we're building our own identity. We're building our own team. We're building our own program. There's going to be things within that are different. There's going to be things within that are the same. Okay, and it's all going to be based on how do we make you guys, okay, as good as you possibly can be as an individual, as a player, and then as a teammate. That's going to be our whole goal. And you have to start understanding that of why we're doing what we're doing.
Again, sounds very similar to what I just heard from Coach Monken say, right? And about when Coach Monken says he hates shitty football, he's going to tell the team, we're not accepting shitty football anymore. If we see it on the tape, you're probably going to get benched, right? A lot of stuff we saw last year from players getting by, guys consistently dropping passes and giving up, bad, not producing, bad play. And they were still out there week in, week out, not a lot of changes, or I didn't see a whole lot of accountability and just that type of, culture and that type of having a level of excellence that you got to live up to. They didn't have that, a standard. I think you hear that with Vrabel, and obviously saw the result. You hear it with Todd Monken too in a little bit about we're not accepting shitty football. We're not doing that. Everything we do adds up to how we compete in the fall, starting now. And so, and then he also said too, you hear Coach Monken said, we're going to fix it. We're going to be honest about it. He's going to tell guys the truth. He's known to be a straight shooter. And Mike Vrabel here goes on about, respecting the building amongst people and the staff and the chefs and everything, about if there's not a respect level If you disrespect what we're doing here, you're not respectful to people and thank them in the building for the work they do every single day. He said, I'm a big boy. You can come confront me. And so kind of just having that coach who's not afraid to get in the guys. Here's Coach Vrabel again.
The training staff, the equipment staff, the kitchen staff, these people are all here to do what? What are they here to do? To help you. They're here to help you do your job. They aren't here to be your valet, to be your housekeeper, to be your maid, to be your butler. You get where I'm going? Okay, we're going to treat those people with the utmost respect. Okay, if you got a problem, you can cuss me out. I'm a big boy. I promise you, we can handle it. But we're going to treat those people with a hell of a lot of respect. Just so we're all on the same page. Like, that's important to me. That's important to our owner. That's important to me. That's important to everybody here, is how you treat people in this building.
I like how you said that there, though. I'm a big boy. We can handle it. Like, he ain't messing around. So, and I think the players probably took notice of that. But again, I think Coach Monken has a great shot to be that next Mike Vrabel for the Browns. Doesn't mean it's going to show up and win losses, and they're going to march over to the Super Bowl next year. I'm not saying that. But going back to what we heard at the beginning of the show, we have an elite defense like Seattle does, or close to enough, pretty damn good defense. We can find the right quarterback, then we can have that type of success. But how do you define the quarterback? But how do you develop the quarterback? Most importantly, how do you develop the team to where it needs to be? And I think you got to look to the other sideline first with the Patriots to say, no, that's where we need to start first, is over there, and then we become the other side, right? Because New England right now, they're not that far behind Seattle. I mean, they're pretty neck and neck still. New England probably just has to adjust some stuff from personnel standpoint offensively and just development and growth, but they have the culture place to be right back there next year possibly, or years to come. They're still going to win the division. They're still going to be in the playoffs, right? They can do that, barring as long as they're healthy. So that's where it starts for me. And that's my point today about why I think Todd Monken can be the next Mike Vrabel, but also that's who he should model his franchise after in some ways. But I think you listen to him talk, he has a similar mindset. You can see the parallels, the correlation we heard today from Vrabel last year when he first got the building to the Monken now being in the building, the message he's sending to the media, to his players. You hear the correlation. And so I think that's a good thing there. Now, in terms of when it comes to Todd Monken, and I think he can be the guy to really finally turn around here in Cleveland and establish that culture we have not had, to be a consistent winner, like you said. But also with that comes you have to develop an elite staff as well. Like I said earlier, what makes a great head coach, what I've said on previous shows, is the staff he surrounds himself with. Well, obviously Jim Schwartz is out as the Cleveland Browns defensive coordinator. So Schwartz is out. We know that. Not surprised there. But a guy that's been speculated to take the job for the Browns is Corey Undlin. He is the pass game, I believe, the DB's coordinator for the Houston Texans. He's also been a part of the Eagles. I think he won a Super Bowl there. He was also part of a Patriots Super Bowl winning team in the past. He's been around a long time. I think him and Todd Monken actually crossed paths together on Jacksonville Jaguars back in like 2009 or something like that. Whenever back in the late 2000s, early 2010s, they were together with each other in the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, obviously, Houston runs a similar system to the Browns, and obviously, we heard Coach Schwartz last week say that he wants to keep kind of the same scheme, right? And emphasizing those players that really you guys are the ones that went out there did it. We just keep the same scheme in place, maybe make some adjustments, probably in the secondary if I had to guess, and some pass coverages and stuff like that. But we want to keep the same scheme, and it makes sense why you would go after Corey Undlin, because he's a guy who, in Houston, they run kind of a similar scheme. Him and Schwartz know each other. He called plays when he was at Detroit. I believe 5-6 years ago. There was a period where he did call plays defensively, so he has experience there as well. He's been a part of winning organizations, right? He kind of fits what they're looking for, checks all the boxes. But also some other guys as well they could look to is Ephraim Banda, who was a DB's coach for the Browns, safeties coach, I believe. And so, the safeties coach for the Browns. And he's been getting looks from other teams before. I think the last year or two, he's been getting looks, or at least I think interviews for DC positions for other teams. He's a very intense guy. Obviously, he's been in the building. He knows what they run. He knows what they're successful at, right? And so I guess if you kind of want to keep everything the exact same and maybe keep a lot of the staff intact too defensively, you could slide Ephraim Bondo up there. Another way they could do that as well is Jason Tarver, the linebackers coach. And obviously Jason Tarver, I think, he's an intense coach as well. But you look at the linebacker unit, I mean, they developed. I mean, he took guys like Devin Bush, Carson Schweitziger's rookie year. Devin Bush was a guy who people gave up on his career. You saw what he did with JOK, right? That unit has always produced. And I think that's a guy who I looked for is like in terms of development stuff. He's shown that. Not saying Ephraim isn't that either. I think the whole defense has done a great job. They all have been under Coach Schwartz as well. They saw how he runs his defense, his systems, his processing, everything, his structure every day of practice, right? What they emphasize on and what they look for. So, but I think it's going to come down to what Todd Monken likes. I think if Todd Monken wants to truly keep everything the same, then you roll with one of these two guys, right? You roll with one of those two guys. All right. But I think if you want to keep the same system but give a new flavor to it, I think one area where the Browns could still improve defensively, and some of this is personnel as well, I think is in the secondary. I think at times their faults have been getting gashed. And, they have gotten gashed up the middle, but you saw this year when they had a healthy interior, they kind of shut that out. Teams were able to run the ball as much. But also in a Schwartz's tenure, I think a lot of the consistent ways they've lost at times the games where the defense wasn't as good was in the secondary, giving up big plays. Remember that Chargers game 2 years ago, right? They gave up, I think it was last year, that Chargers game gave a lot of explosive plays that game. Even a guy like Denzel Ward, he wasn't on his A game that day. The Houston Texans playoff game, we all remember that. I mean, they took every big play that was ran against, every explosive play downfield that was ran against the Browns, some trick plays that whole season. They put it all in one game plan, right? And the Browns did not adjust to that, right? I think that was one, you saw it in the time this year, at times where the secondary is just getting beat. I think some of that is personnel. I think the Browns have still lacked having a free safety. I think the two important positions I think they finally they haven't addressed in the previous years. They did this year was 3-tech. They solved the 3-tech, right? If you don't have a great 3-tech inside, you're not able to get pressure at the middle and stop the run. You're not going to really have a chance defensively. But if you don't have a safety in the middle of the field, it's why it's called safety, right? It's a safety. In the back end, especially a guy, Grant Dublin's a guy like a strong safety that can move down in the box more, right? But they need somebody that can cover back there, can cover one half of a field, right? Somebody who is a ball hawk, somebody who you can leave back there. He can handle that back in the back end there, be the center fielder and call out a lot of things and communicate. They haven't had that, I think. They've had guys in there rotated there, be decent at times, be productive, but I think they've had that consistent guy where it's like the solidified that position. And I think they've missed that at times. I also think they've kind of lacked some speed in the secondary. Although I thought the Tyson Campbell trade, and physicality this year, but I thought the Tyson Campbell trade was a good one, right? I think they got to get a little more depth. Maybe they're a corner, maybe another guy or two. But I think if they get that free safety and another corner with some speed, I think they could be all right. But I think some of that is schematic too. They didn't adjust at times well or be prepared in that secondary, I thought. And that's just a slight criticism I have of that defense. If I had to, it's a great defense. They've always been pretty good. There's a lot of games where the secondary was great, but mainly due to the front seven, right? But I think if they can clean up something schematically in that back end, I think maybe that's where a guy like Corey Unlin comes in, where he can bring some different flavor in the building, right? And I think if I'm the Browns, if I'm Todd Monken, I got to really sit and think about this. I know the players really wanted Jim Schwartz to come back. He wanted Schwartz to come back. He respected Jim Schwartz, although I don't think he really was like begging for him to come back. It's his team. It's his program now. He's got to find guys, again, going back to the theme of the show, we could talk about scheme and all that, but he's got to find somebody who does he think is going to lead a unit, because he's going to be working a lot with the offense. He's going to call plays, right? He's first-time head coach in the NFL. He's got a lot of he's got to work with over there. He's got to hire somebody he can trust to run that whole unit, and they just leave him over there, and everything will be fine. And so I think a guy like Corey Unlin makes a lot of sense because he's called plays before as defensive coordinator, and with Detroit, he called plays. He has a lot of backgrounds, comes from winning organizations. He's a little more experienced than the other two. And it just brings a different flavor in the building that I think they need. And I think guys, if you try to hire within just for scheme only, I think, you could slowly over time, if the season gets a little rocky, if you start off not at the same page, or, guys may look to Tarver or Ephraim. I'm not saying it's possible, or not saying this will happen, but it's possible that he would say, coach, and we should just hire Schwartz as head coach. What the hell are we doing over here? This isn't going on. If it doesn't start how they thought, guys in defense can start to you could have somewhat of a slow divide in that locker room. I asked Stump about that on his show, and he doesn't feel like that's something that to really worry about because these are paid professionals. But I just think in this modern era, just how different culture and society is nowadays, and here, like Vrabel said, everybody's on their phone reading all this stuff, and and I just think guys are probably a little more in this situation. I think a little more, on edge because they've been losing the last 2 years. Like, I think it's something that could happen if you went that route. Not saying it would, but I don't think it would happen as much because I think Todd Monken just saw the type of coach he is. Either you're buying in, or your ass is out. So, which is how it should be. But there's gonna be a real culture, and I think guys will buy into that, and they'll understand the why and what they're doing. I think Monken will do that. I don't think he's some tyrant. I think he's a guy who wants to really collaborate with these guys and show them, like, I'm going to help you get to the mountaintop. I want you to get there. I want to go there with you. Let's do it together, right? And so, but I think Coriolano makes a lot of sense. Again, I think he's experienced. He's come from winning programs. He's been a part of Super Bowls. He's called plays for his defensive coordinator time period. Comes from a damn good defense. The number one defense possibly in the NFL this year outside of Seattle was Houston. And I think are one of the best. And I think you bring him over there, some new flavor, maybe develop that secondary a little differently, or get some different idea in there in that back end. I think that's the route I would go, and I think that's a smart way to go for the Browns. Well, we'll keep an eye on that, whoever they hire. I'm sure they're going to be hiring somebody any day now, pretty soon. So get some water for this last segment here. Moving on now. Going back to the interview today I saw on the radio show, Basket and Phelps with Scott Petrak. Shout out to them, and Scott Petrak did a great job. They talk about the quarterback position here. And this has been a topic I've seen throughout the Cleveland Airways today about quarterback. And I think a lot of people are thinking, you have an elite defense. Can we find the quarterback to be like Seattle? Now, I explained why they should think to be more like New England first before they want to be Seattle. But I think, it's going to be very fascinating where they choose to go with the quarterback position. Obviously, Jim Schwartz last week, when he was asked about Shedeur Sanders, he was kind of very vague about it. He just said, he's not going to name any starters yet. Myles Garrett the weekend was asked about it at the Super Bowl, and he said, you got to earn the position. It's not just going to be handed to you. I thought Denzel Ward, when he was asked about it on the Kay Adams podcast, he was kind of like not very committal. They gave praise to Shedeur, but they weren't like it wasn't like they said, he's definitely our guy. So I don't think it's definitely not Shedeur's job. There's definitely going to be competition. And you heard the way Coach Monken talked about Deshaun Watson even in another interview. He wants to see what he can get out of him. You're paying that guy $90 million next year. I think they're going to want to see as an organization, what can we get out of this guy? But I also think, too, they may look to the outside, and I think that's very possible. Name you keep hearing a lot is Malik Willis. And I'm going to get to Malik Willis here in a minute, but let's listen to this here about quarterback position and some of the names being thrown out there for the Browns.
Line.
Let me follow up your quarterback thought with this, and we're going to talk about this coming up in a little bit. Your thought about Darnold is exactly what inspired me to talk about this today. Sam was with the Jets. He was with the Panthers. He was with the Niners. Really good with the Vikings. They thought, well, fluke. We have another guy. J.J. McCarthy will be fine. They weren't. He goes to Seattle. They're really, really good. All of a sudden, over the weekend, Cardinals expected to move on from Kyler Murray. Dolphins moving on from Tua. Derek Carr talking about possibly coming out of retirement. Kirk Cousins not sticking around in Atlanta. And Todd Monken saying nothing committal about Shedeur Sanders or Dylan Gabriel or Deshaun Watson. How aggressive are the Browns going to be? And could their quarterback next year be a guy who was either on another NFL roster this last year or even 2 years ago if Derek Carr decides to come out of retirement?
Oh, I think that's certainly possible, and I might even say it's likely. Todd Monken did not tip his hand with how he feels about the quarterbacks on the roster. He said it's excited to coach them all. And,
yep.
Said some good stuff about Deshaun and Shedeur. But I just look at Todd Monken, and I think at 60 years old, getting his first head coaching job in the NFL, he's going to want an upgraded quarterback. Like, that's just how I would think he views it. And I could be completely wrong. And maybe he thinks Shedeur Sanders is the guy, or he thinks the combination of Shedeur Sanders and Deshaun Watson, that he can make that work in 2026. Not just make it work, but win games, right? Like, I don't think Todd Monken's taking this job going, yeah, I'm worried about winning in 2029. Like, I don't think that's who he is, because he won't be here. And maybe the GM won't be here, right? Yeah. So I think he's thinking about winning in 2026, which means he's got to feel comfortable with who that quarterback is. So I would certainly think some of those guys are on the table. Tua me personally, doesn't do a whole lot for me. I've never been a big Kyler Murray fan, but, Todd Monken had Lamar Jackson, right, for the last 3 years. And he's talked multiple times about the scramble play and how important that is. And we saw the quarterback run game was so important, was so much a part of what they did in Baltimore that, would Kyler Murray work in that situation? I mean, obviously, he's way smaller than Lamar, but would that intrigue Todd Monken? Maybe. Does Derek Carr have enough of the movement skills to intrigue Todd Monken? He certainly does me. I always liked Derek Carr.
I've always liked him too.
Then I go back. I think Kirk Cousins is probably too old and too immobile, right? He's a pocket passer, and I think Todd Monken's looking for something different than that. But it makes me go back to Malik Willis, right? He's got the dual threat ability, where I think Todd Monken could run a lot of the same stuff he did with Baltimore. So, I think those kind of guys are all on the table. And, Andrew Berry.
And so, again, that was courtesy of 93 The Fan. You heard a lot of names you mentioned there, but I think the one key theme you hear with Monken through what Petrak was describing there, and we've heard about him, he's even said on the record, he likes guys that not only can sit in the pocket and throw the ball down the field and make all the throws, but that are a little mobile. He likes guys that are versatile, two-way guys, he calls them. Can you convert it down with your legs and with your arm? And I think a guy like Malik Willis might make a lot of sense for the Browns, and you've heard his name linked to them a lot. Now, again, doesn't mean he's giving up on Shador, doesn't mean he's giving up on Deshaun Watson, but I think he may look for – I don't think he came in here just to wait till 2029 or down the road a year from now to try to win. If he doesn't believe in one of these guys that could truly run his offense to where he wants it to be, if he doesn't believe he has the guy in the ability to do that, Malik Willis, I think you've heard his name, like I said, linked to the Browns a lot, but he makes a lot of sense because he's a guy who, he's been developed, right? He's sat behind Jordan Love. He's been developed, right? Kind of similar to Sam Darnold. And when Sam Darnold went from place to place after he left the Jets, and he sat and developed and finally got his shot with Minnesota, and he shined, and he got his contract, and he went to Seattle. Now he's a Super Bowl champion, right? We've seen this story with these quarterbacks now, with these guys that sit. Mac Jones has potential to be the same one as well. But Malik Willis, I think, checks the boxes for what Todd Monken likes, A, as a quarterback, but also B, he's been developed, and then C, he's kind of on that same trend as these other guys. You want to find your next Sam Darnold, and I think you'd have the coach in place to develop him and get the most out of Malik Willis. And I asked Coach Stump about this when he was on the show a couple weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was. And here's what Coach Stump said back on my show 3 weeks ago, and I asked about Malik Willis. Here's what he said.
If you get Malik Willis, Malik is probably number one.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If Rand Carthon had kept Malik Willis instead of Will Levis, Rand would still be in Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't have lost his job. Malik can play. I mean, he went to Green Bay and did a hell of a job.
Yeah, and when he got out there, that development showed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, no, you bring Malik Willis in there, Malik might beat Deshaun and Shador out. I don't think it'd even be close. It might be with Deshaun, but not with Shador.
And so that was Coach Stump, and he said he would bring in a Malik Willis immediately. And he said he don't think it'd even be close, the competition. That was Coach Stump's words there. So I think Malik Willis is a guy I would keep an eye on. I think he really fits. You heard his name brought up in that 93 with Scott Petrak. You heard his name brought up in articles recently. You see what Todd Monken likes. You kind of started connecting the dots. I think Malik Willis is a guy they could really start to target, look after. He could be the Browns quarterback in 2026. So I think that's a thought there. That's where I'm at now with the quarterback position. I think it's either going to be Shador, Deshaun, or Malik. But I think Malik, to me, makes a lot of sense for what Todd Monken likes and where they are and what they're trying to find. Again, going back to that mantra with the elite defense, how do you find that quarterback? He might be the guy, the next Darnold guy that they think could be the next Darnold for them. So I don't know. No matter whoever the coach's dumpster fire organization won't matter. Forever Cheeks, Barry's an idiot. Shout out to Teflon Don. Good to see you, my friend. I like Malik. If Stump's saying that, I'm on board. Yeah. Stump knows a lot more about football than most of us will ever will. So, and his track record as a coach and a player speaks for itself. So, especially as a coach. I mean, he's Sean Alexander in Seattle's under his belt. Go look at those statistics, what happened there. But again, I want to close out with this with Coach Monken. I meant to play this earlier, but kind of goes along with what I'm talking about again. Yeah, we're going to bring Malik Willis. Great. You want Deshaun Watson or Shador Sanders? Great. But you got to have the right staff in place. And something I've said on the show all the time, what makes a great head coach is the staff he surrounds himself with. My viewers have probably heard me say that ad nauseum. So here's Coach Monken kind of reemphasizing that in this interview. We'll close out with this.
Together, you mentioned earlier, you got to start by putting together the staff, and we've heard George Warhop's name, who's spent some time here with the Browns as well. Is that fun for you right now? And obviously, there's defensive stuff that we still need to work through, but is that something you've always thought about doing?
Well, let me just say this: it doesn't matter what side of the ball you're on. If you don't have an elite staff with you, you have no chance. In my opinion, to get to elite ideas, it takes a lot of ideas. And in order to get your players to play at high level, your assistant coaches are critical to that. I was fortunate enough, or I'm going to be fortunate enough, to get a number of guys that are going to come with me that were with the Ravens that were really the epicenter of our game planning. I can't get into specifics of all of them, but that made it easier to take this job. Elite defense. And then who do I get as an offensive staff that allows us to get right up to speed? And then once I get the staff in place, how do we turn our focus on the roster in building this roster, and then gives us a chance to really take off? And that's really, when you said about the assistant coaches and the guys I've been with, and there's a comfort level of how we do things collectively, the day-to-day, the expectation. So I'm jacked from that end of it, or I'm going to be able to bring with me.
You talked about kind of the last 6 years.
And so, again, he said it right there. Before we talk about quarterback and roster construction, hey, we know we have an elite defense. But how do we as an organization get to being the Patriots first before Seattle, right? And I think let's fill out the right staff, the right culture, right? Accountability, standards each and every day. And then we'll focus on the quarterback and personnel that we like, and then we'll develop them, and then we'll take off to who we want to be. And so what he just said right there was awesome. That's probably the best thing I've heard him say, because he kind of summed up the most important thing I think he said. It kind of really sums up everything I've broken down today and displayed to you guys of why I think he can be possibly the next Mike Vrabel, right? Doesn't mean in terms of win-loss in one season, but in terms of just being that for the Cleveland Browns. Can he be the Vrabel for the Browns that what Vrabel is to New England in 1 year? Can he be that, can he be that coach for us finally? I think he can. And there's a lot of correlation to what he said, to what Vrabel said, and he has the right mindset, And I think, and like Parachut said, he's talking the talk, but can Todd walk the walk? But I think he can. I think he will. And he's done it before. He's won before. He's been around it. He knows what it looks like. And I think what we're going to come down to, I think it's going to take the other people in the organization around him they're going to have to buy in and start believing in what he's sharing to them. Like Vrabel said to his team, once he gets that belief in his team and the organization, and they'll see the why, then I think we'll have something cooking here in Cleveland. So, but he has the right, he understands the structure. He understands what it looks like. Now he's just got to go out and do it. And I think he will. And I think Todd Monken will get it done. I think the only way Todd Monken doesn't work Cleveland is if the ownership or somebody tries to overstep him, and like it has happened before, and screws it up. But I think they understand now. There's number one, there's not a deep pedestrian anymore, which really was the drive of that. And so I think now it's basically Todd's show. And he and Andrew both said they're aligned in what they want to do, and they have a relationship. And so we're going to see, but I believe it can happen. And so that's all I got for you guys today. Shout out to Parent Teflon Don, UHJ5Q or 5FQ. Shout out to all you guys. I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm going to react to the Cavs here next shortly. Shout out to them. They got the win in Sacramento in Harden's debut. Play Denver tonight, so I'll be watching that. We'll get more in the Cavs talk. But shout out to my grandmother. She said, I think you're right. The culture. That's right. It all comes down to culture for them. It always comes down to, and that's what for every organization, team to be successful, it comes down to the culture. It's absolutely right. It starts with the culture. I think he can instill that culture. Like I said, I think he can. I think he will. So, but I love all you guys. Like, subscribe, share all that good stuff, and I will see you the next one. I'm out of here. Gone.